Well, another team that keeps winning is San Diego State. I mean, your thoughts on what they've been able to do so far this year?
Yeah, I think they're a great program, and a lot of respect for them. It's going to be one of those games that's we're going to have to play our best to compete with them. There's no question about it. You put their tape on, and defense, they obviously have that very confusing style. They're all over the place, play hard. And on offense, they're a power football team. Very physical team on both sides.
And, you look at you guys had some big losses going into the season, and so do they. I mean, their quarterback and Ronnie Hillman and stuff like that, but it looks like their offense has still been able to not miss a beat, even losing some pretty good guys.
I think both sides. I know they lost some good players on defense as well, and they just plug the next guy in and play very, very hard. And so they have their system on how they want to operate for sure, and it doesn't look like they've missed much.
They've had to change quarterbacks because of an injury. How have you noticed them adjust to the new quarterback? Is there much?
I can't speak to that yet. I haven't had a chance to study that in depth enough, but I know they're winning, and but I need to study that more.
McFadden's their playmaker at corner. I think you saw him last year. What is it he does that gets gets his hands on the ball so much?
Covers good. I mean, he's just one of those guys that's got a lot of skill. He's obviously played for a long time, so he's savvy in terms of what's going on out there. But he's he's a good player. There's no doubt about it.
You guys have such a relationship now with San Diego State in that you two are moving to another conference together. You're going to see them every year. Do you know Rocky that well, and do you have any relationship with those?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I've gotten to know him over the last couple years, and certainly know him as a coach and the respect that everybody has for him. And the time that I have spent with him, he's like a great guy, and does a great job with his team.
You talked about a little bit ago. We talked about certain rivalries. I mean, you talked about kind of creating rivalries going to Big East. I mean, it seems like a pretty good candidate.
Yeah, so we'll see. You know how that goes. I mean, you got to stick in. You got to stick in a league long enough to do those things. But obviously, that's down the road, and we stick together and all that. It's the two teams in the West. So we'll see what happens.
Talked about how San Diego State kind of picked up when they lost players to injuries. Saturday, some defensive guys went down. The secondary was kind of banged up.
Yeah.
You had to insert people. How would you evaluate how those guys stepped up?
Well, I think everybody stepped up great. I really do. And that's just kind of how it goes. I mean, we know it's coming sooner or later. But it's always when you least expect it. You tell the guys all along, hey, you're going to have to go, and then things happen. And it's good to get them good game reps and see what they can do. It's just different than practice.
Any updates on any of those guys?
Well, Brian Douglas will be out. He's got an ACL. And, and then the rest of the guys are either, day to day, week to week. We'll just have to assess when we get out there and see what they can do.
How big of a loss is that, with Brian and what he's been able to do?
Yeah, it's tough because he was doing a really good job. Really thought of him as, starting corner. And he's been playing like that, and it's just one of those unfortunate things. It just kind of plants weird. No one hit him or anything, and happens.
Expectation that he'd be back for fall camp next year?
If you do the math, he's probably well into fall camp.
You guys have had it seems like over the years that DB position's one where you've had to sort of dig down the depth chart in November before, and sometimes it's worked and sometimes it hasn't. What's the key to being able to plug guys in there and get it to keep going?
Yeah, I don't know what the key is. The key is to stay healthy, and we haven't had luck there, but we still got some good players there, and those guys are playing well, and keep our fingers crossed that we stay relatively healthy, from here on out.
You talked about maybe bringing a redshirt here. Have you thought any more about that?
Yeah, we're talking about it, so we'll figure that out here as we go.
Deontay Florence got a lot of prime playing time after the injury. Is his role naturally increasing then?
I think everybody's, you get this part of the season, I think everybody's role increases, whether it's on special teams or offense, defense. I mean, you just don't have enough guys. And, 4 games left into the season. That's kind of how it goes.
You talking about a DB? Is that, if you burned a red shirt, it'd be a DB?
Yeah, I think that's, what we're talking about. I don't like the word burn, because we're not gonna waste anybody's year, and that's the connotation I get here. I mean, if we're going, we're going. That guy's gonna get good quality reps, and it's gonna springboard him into next year. And so we've done that in the past, and we're not gonna waste anybody's year.
How did Darian do, kind of stepping into that starting role?
Yeah, Darian's done great all season, and we've kind of thought of him as a starter as well, and he didn't disappoint. So he's been doing a really good job, and we had no hesitation when that he was going to be the starting guy, and so we're excited about him.
Expecting him to start again Saturday?
Yep.
Lee learning a bit of a tough lesson with the injuries and the way you may have to shift some guys around to compensate for that?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't talked to Lee, so I don't know.
Definitely not back this week.
He's not back this week.
Hayden.
Not back.
Are they practicing with the team?
They are not.
Is there a timetable?
No timetable.
You've mentioned Chris Potter a couple times in recent weeks, but it seems like the last few weeks you guys have started to hit some of these punt returns a little bit. Just things kind of starting to click a little bit out there, or?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of that. I think the guys that are blocking for him did a little bit better job this Saturday. But like I said, I mean, everybody's pretty crafty in terms of how they punt the punt returners these days, and so you're only going to get a couple opportunities, and the guys in front of you got to do a good enough job to get things started. And we know from past history, if we get him started for Chris, he's going to do some things, and whether that's Mitch or Chris or any of those guys. We got some guys that can do some things with the ball, but so we got that done a little bit on Saturday.
When you get the ball on a turnover, it always seems that there's energy gained by the offense. When you have like a punt return or a long kick return, is it all similar energy?
I think so. I think big plays, explosive plays are kind of all the same, and I think that's what everybody's trying to create. Wherever they come, special teams or offense, defense. That's what everybody likes. Players, the crowd, coaches, and so they are momentum boosts.
I think you guys are in the top 10 in the country now in kickoff return, yardage, per return. I know you don't care about the numbers necessarily, but 27, 28 yards a return, and that, especially when there's not, necessarily as many returns.
Yeah. We've been solid there. We really haven't done anything super special. I think sometimes, those numbers can be skewed. I'm not saying necessarily ours are, but I think others can be. And so I think that's really hard to read into that. I mean, I know, a lot of punt returners fair catch everything, and then they'll take one and get, 15 yards, and their average 15 yards return, and they're leading the country. And then you get another guy that doesn't fair catch much at all, trying to break tackles and gets 2-3 yards here and there, and so those numbers get completely misleading. And so I think you can have a little bit of that on kickoff returns as well. I think we've been doing a good job, but I do think I think San Diego State's very good on special teams. I mean, it usually comes with, you usually don't see good offense, good defense, and poor special teams. You just don't. And so you kind of almost know what's coming when you study some of that tape, and you're like, okay, and there's those good defensive players showing up on special teams, and there's those good offensive players, and coaches across the board these days put their best guys out there.
Played 8 games, the new kickoff rules. You think they've done what they wanted to do, and do you like the way the rule has turned out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if they've done what they want. We haven't had very many touchbacks. I don't think it's changed much for us at all in terms of our kickoff team. So nationally and those type of things, you guys could probably answer that better than I. I don't know. I didn't like it when they kicked out of the bounds and we thought we were going to get on the 40 and it was the 35. So that wasn't as good.
So why did they not make that 5 yards?
They said that it's 30 yards from where they kick off is the rule. So, yeah.
Can you build confidence and momentum in areas like third down conversions, red zone, or is it just absolute clean slate as you start the next game?
Well, I mean, I think the guys are proud of how they played, but it's, we live week to week. You guys will be back here next week going, what in the world happened? I mean, we know that. I mean, it's how it is. And I think it works better for you guys when that happens. You got more to talk about. But that's how we do it. We live week to week. It's a new beast, new schemes, new players, all that stuff, which is completely different than what we just saw.
You like the progress you're making in those areas? though?
Yeah, I think the guys, like I said, they're good kids. They, they work hard and very focused, and I'm excited for this game because I think the kids, they know that San Diego State is a very good team, and we're going to have to play our best. And I like to be around our guys when we get that vibe.
Facing a team that's pretty good inside the red zone. You guys have been outstanding on defense inside the red zone this year. Kind of leads to that, and you look at the Wyoming game, that first drive, that was a huge stop down there.
Yeah, it was real big because we were kind of on our heels for whatever reason and not really slowing them down. And then, Sketch did a great job blocking that field goal. And that's really how they practiced. I mean, we've practiced a lot of that. And I knew it was just a matter of time before we got one of those because they've been doing it in practice. That's usually our message to those guys that, if you do things consistently enough in practice, I promise you it's going to show up in the game. And so it did.
You mentioned after the game that, about letting Joe be Joe a little bit and talk.
Yeah.
I wonder, how has he gotten more input into the game plan, or do you guys feel more comfortable with what he likes to do now that he's been the starter for a while?
Yeah, I think we're very aware of all of our guys' strengths and weaknesses. And as the season goes on, guys start to gain more confidence with certain things. And I think anytime a quarterback, tells you, hey, I really like this, that brings a lot to the table. And if a guy says, I don't like that, equally so. And so I think Joe even feels strongly about some of the things that, he's comfortable with and what he likes. And I've always liked hearing quarterbacks when they're like, hey, I think we should run this. I mean, unless it's just something that nobody else is seeing, we'll probably do that.
Does it take a little time? I mean, you got, Robert Prince is in a new role and Joe's in a new role and Coach Smith to get comfortable between the three of them that, hey, yeah, let's do this, let's not do this, or...
Yeah, and it's not like that. I mean, the coaches set the game plan. Certainly the quarterbacks watch tape and they'll say, hey, I like this and that. But the coaches, I mean, they set the game plan. And then as the game gets going and what's in the game plan, there may be a situation that, in between and we got a timeout and it's, hey, do you like this play or that play? And, we'll have a tendency to lean towards what they like.
Now, 8 weeks into the season, obviously injuries are starting to be a problem, but we asked Joe about just kind of the grind mentally and physically. Are you seeing it from your players, and if so, how are you seeing them react to that grind?
Not necessarily. It is grind. I mean, you get this late into the season. But we, hopefully prepared them way down the road that this is how. I mean, it's easy to play game 1, 2, 3, first home game, first game on the road, this opponent, that opponent. You start to settle into a rhythm, and okay, now we got to go out to practice on Tuesday and do this thing again. And so, but it's been pretty good. And I think the guys understand that they're going to have to practice well to play well, and we've gotten that for the most part.
The program just clinched its 15th straight winning season, and that's really hard to do. Do you take pride in that achievement, or did you even think about that?
I don't really think about it, but when you mention it, I mean, I think it's great. I think that's kind of Boise State. I always say the same thing. I think Boise State's always been pretty good in football for whatever reasons, and go back even further than 15 years. But during the season, you just, like I say, you just live week to week and kind of only as good as that last game until Monday rolls around, and then you're not even as good as that. You just get ready for the next one.
I think on the outside, when you have to plug in some of these younger guys, you can think of inexperience, obviously.
Yeah.
But how prepared are these kids to play? I mean, earlier this year, you said even when Joe was a backup, he prepared like he was going to play. Jamar was saying today that, they take these kids under their wings early in the week when they're watching film.
Yeah.
How prepared are these guys?
I will tell you in 5 days. I mean, they all work hard, and certainly when a guy goes down and they know, okay, now my role is really changing. I mean, there's a new sense of urgency. But, then you really find out here when it's game time, lights come on.
What's the general reaction like when you go to one of the young guys and kind of say, it's go time? I mean,
well, they're usually very excited. Everybody feels bad for the guys that are not playing. But, again, we talk about it so much, and it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And so we, try to support those guys as much as we can. But the next guy has to answer. He needs to step up. I mean, nobody's going to feel sorry for us, for that guy. I mean, the only guys who are going to feel sorry for the guy who got hurt is his parents and guys in the locker room, and the coaches. And other than that, it's like, okay, that's too bad. Now, who's going to produce? That's the world we live in.
As you've seen Joe kind of make that role of quarterback his own, is there an area that he's developed that's maybe surprised you, or something you didn't necessarily expect from him as he's made it his own?
I just think he's got a really good command of what we're trying to get done out there. I think he's got he knows. He's got a very firm grasp of some things the defenses are doing and what we're trying to do and what certain players on our side need to do to make that happen. And, he's got a really a good sense of that. And so, that's where some of those discussions come from on the sideline that you guys are talking about. I mean, he knows what's going on. And so, you dissect some of those things in detail, and I think he's done a great job with that.
Most weeks it's been the defense that's had to face something that's odd or unique from week to week. This time it looks like it's more the offense's turn to have to face something that's unique. What is unique about Long's defense?
Yeah, they are very unique. You just don't see many defenses like this. BYU, used to be a little bit like it. I mean, I think they're pretty different, but those origins are very much the same, Rocky and Bronco. I mean, they were in cahoots together at one time. And so you see how well BYU's defense plays, and it can be confusing at times. And, Rocky is the originator of, this defense and this scheme. And so just how they move people and how you identify people, it's just different than anybody else does.
This game's at 8. You've sort of fallen into a routine of 1:30 games or day games, and now this one's at 8:30. How do you stretch the day, and will you watch football during the day, or how do you spend it?
Yeah, well, it just depends. Sometimes there's recruiting involved and just different things. I mean, I'm not too worried about a 1:30 to 8:30 game. I mean, usually it's different days and bye weeks and all that kind of stuff. So hours, that's not that big a deal to us.
You give the guys a little more time at home or before
No,
they get started?
We kind of whether we'd play at certainly if we play at 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock, things are tighter and condensed. But if we were to play at 6 o'clock or 8:30, that's not really different. We do our stuff in the morning, give them some time in the afternoon, set our pregame meals, hours away from when we kick off, and that's how we always do it.
What about you personally? Do you is that more an extra hour or two for you to
Worry.
watch film?
That's what I do.
You're a busy guy, but do you ever follow a little bit kind of what your former guys are doing in the NFL? I know yesterday some of your guys had some real nice days.
I usually, I don't. I got a chance to watch Doug because that was a Thursday night game, so I did see that. And then after that, if it's not something like that, usually I'll hear if somebody did some pretty good things, and so I'll get some of that feedback. And so I heard about a few of the guys, and there's a lot of them nowadays. So
Gonna make you pretty proud, though?
Yeah, no, I think everybody's excited about that. Yeah, I mean we're always pulling for those guys. And
A couple weeks ago, lots of questions about red zone and trying to run the ball down there, and the last 2 weeks you guys have been pounding in the end zone in the red zone. Any particular difference, or just getting better? Or?
I think probably just that, a little more emphasis, a little more practice time. Things are hard and tough sledding down there, and I think the backs have run hard. I mean, DJ had a red zone run that was, in my opinion, all him. We got to start it and he break about 3 tackles. I mean, a lot of runs look pretty good if you can break 3 tackles. So some of that, but that's how it goes, and that's how it's going to have to be this week. I mean, they do a very good job of creating negative plays and hitting you in the backfield, and we keep talking about getting